Okay, well, it looks like we're all here is going to be here, so we're set up to record. Everything's going. So, Michael, whenever you're ready, we can get started.
Okay. All ashore is going ashore. um, let's find ourselves a comfortable seat. Shake our butt a little bit. Make sure that we're sitting up straight, straight as comfortable. Noticing the spots on our body that are in contact with a chair or a couch or a cushion. That is mediating for the gravity of this planet. Take a few deep breaths, and while we're taking those breaths, make a special note. Put a little sticky star at the point at which the inhale stops and the exhale starts. This is a meditation on the liminal space, the space between. Keeping a light pulse taking finger on the breath. Take a look inside at the consciousness. See the rising and falling of the various sensations. The touching, the feeling, the hearing and tasting, seeing, and the thinking. Notice how our information from our world comes in waves, like waves on an ocean. Observe these things rise up and fall. Sensations, emotions, thought come out of the ocean, become prominent, and then fall back into the ocean. Pay a little special attention. Put a little sticky red star on that place, that space, at the top and the bottom of this curve. Sit for an extra millisecond or two. Where the thought, the emotion, the sensation, where it falls back into the ocean. And there's a space in between one thought and the next. And notice what's there or what's not there. It's in our liminal spaces that we get to know what consciousness is like for just a second without thought, without almost without the brain processing something. It's in these spaces in between the thoughts and in between the breaths that we have the opportunity to glimpse a silence, perhaps a darkness, something of emptiness. and allow these places to invite us to lean in, spend an extra moment there in the stillness, in the expanse. As we approach or incline towards a purer form of awareness than usual. A just awareness, an only awareness. The tip of Mahamudra. Take a mental snapshot of these moments in between the breaths, the thoughts, the waves, so that we can more recognize these during our days, during our night, as the spaces and places and times where we can get closer, leaning in towards an open awareness. Let's take just a moment to notice a few of those. Let's come back into the space, if not fully, more so. And handing off the baton to Pete.
Okay, Pete. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. We're on page 125 in the book, section 2 of the Ultimate Supreme Path of Mahamudra, called Impartiality. Actually, 11, section 11, yeah. Okay, so I'll read some of it. The true nature in that view and all other qualities such as meditation, conduct, commitment, and result are all manifestations of your own mind. The mind is a state of clear self-knowing. That clarity has an empty nature. Like space, it cannot be divided. There are no directions, center, or limits to be identified. There is no duality of viewer and viewed. In the nature of the mind, therefore, there is no view and no realization. There is no duality of meditator and object of meditation. Therefore, there is no meditation and no experience. There is no duality of familiarizer and familiarized. Therefore, there is no familiarization and no absence of familiarization. There is no duality of someone distracted and an object of distraction. Therefore, there is no non-distraction and no distraction. There is no duality of performer of conduct and performed conduct. Therefore, there is no conduct and nothing that is performed. There is no duality of someone who attains and something attained. Therefore, there is no accomplishment and no attainment. That's how much left in that. So, okay, we'll stop there for now. So basically, something that occurred to me reading this is that the author, Lama Zhang, it sounds like there's a whole lot of nothing, just a big blank. That's due to the words. The words make it like that, but the experience of it is the most full, perfect thing there ever was, So clear self-knowing means that it's not aware of some other object. It's just, and really, we tend to think of ourselves as something different than everything else. We're actually, ourself is part of everything else, and everything else is a part of who we are. Yeah. So anyone has some thoughts they'd like to share on this section, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I'd like to share something. You know me.
That's good. Yeah.
When I first really got into meditation years ago, and I always was experiencing having different kinds of visualizations. Some were guided visualizations, and some seemed to be spontaneous visualizations, and so on. And it was always like a ride. I was just getting in a car and just going someplace. I wasn't driving, but it was just like a movie that was going on or something. And I was always trying to relate it to the books that I was reading, the studies I was reading at the time and everything. And it was all good. It was healthy. I was enjoying it. But then I had this one meditation that was very deep, and it was just black. It was dark. It was nothing. And it really flipped me out. And it took me years to figure out that I had reached the way I explained it, that I had reached the edge of my mind. And there was nothing more to fabricate. There was nothing more to do. It was the emptiness, or whatever words we want to use for it. And that has stayed with me in terms of, I still do visualization. I can still do visualization. But I remember that blackness, that darkness, that silence and so on was the threshold of maybe the Mahamudra or something like that. That's it.
I think we can say this amongst ourselves. In the teachings, they talk about the black near attainment is thus one step away from the clear light. There's the red near attainment, then there's the black near attainment, and then there's the clear light, I believe is the order. And first there's the white, then the red, then the black, then the clear light. And that's what it sounds like, I mean, I can't diagnose that, That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Okay, now as far as this text goes, this is very difficult. It's like the part of the Heart Sutra where it says no attainment and no non-attainment. And it has the very similar feel to that. And I've always had problems with it. But here's a metaphor, or rather an analogy that was given to me that I always found helpful. Is that when you are washing clothes, first you have to add the soap to get the dirt out. And then when you have the soapy clothes, you have to rinse them with water to get the soap out. So you're not clean until you get every single trace of soap out. And not only that, you have to dry the water so there's no water left. So meditation proceeds by stages, and all of us are at a stage where all these things he's saying that are non-existent are very much existent. We're all very much still at the soap stage of meditation. So there is meditation, there is familiarization, there is distraction, and there is conduct. But at one point, all of that gets transcended. So I just find that metaphor helpful. So even though I can't understand this really intellectually, it makes me feel more easy with an analogy like that. So
Let me ask you this, Bernie. We talked about the taste of sugar cane, and
Yeah.
how could someone give, if you weren't familiar with that, could someone give an adequate description that would be intellectually satisfying of the taste of sugar cane? Because I think maybe they couldn't.
no, of course not. Any kind of sensation can't be reduced to words. So, but he's saying more than that. He's equating two things which normally are considered the opposite. So it's not just at a level of experience, it's also talking at a level of logic too, because he's saying two things which are, from a logical point of view, are complete opposite are the same. There's no familiarization and no absence of familiarization. You can put that in a little logical expression, and the computer will tell you, no, that's a contradiction, you know? So there are contradictions here, and there's no escaping them. But at a certain level, I suppose the contradiction gets resolved.
What if you were standing on a seesaw in the middle as a kid, and they said it's not leaning to the left and it's not leaning to the right? There's because you're standing on it in perfect balance.
Yeah, that's
In
the
the
reason
center.
why they don't have seesaws in playgrounds anymore, because they were too dangerous. Because kids like me used to play on them. They used to walk up and down them like they were.
Right.
They don't do that anymore. That's
Or stand on them and
it's-
have someone jump on the other side and
yeah,
flip you into the air.
yeah. I get all these metaphors, but somehow I think it's something more profound than any of these metaphors, like the taste of honey or sugar cane, and the balance between two extremes. It's not just the average of the two. It's something that really
No.
transcends the two.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the gate parasam gati boy soha. I'm struck by when I looked at this the other evening. I'm struck by the very first paragraph and the first and the fourth line that are connected with a pseudo list. And what it's saying to me right there is the true nature in the view that is of non-duality is also a manifestation of your own mind. The true nature is a manifestation of your own mind. Does anybody see anything different there?
Well, there's I don't know. It's difficult.
Well,
I think-
if we were to identify true nature right away, it's a manifestation of our mind. If it's
Isn't
a
that mind?
concept,
Isn't that mind seeing itself?
there's
Yeah,
duality.
that's what he's talking about in the first section. What he says, self-knowing, right?
Calling it true nature is certainly a manifestation of one's mind.
So is it something that is cultivated? Is it something that's developed? Is it something that's anticipated? Or is it something that is ultimately spontaneous?
Spontaneous, yeah. I think the obscurations to it are cleared up, and that's the cultivation. But to actually experience it, it's like, oh, it was there all along.
It's
Right.
recognition of what was always there, but you never saw before.
Right.
So, every day I go out for a walk now at lunchtime, and every day I'm seeing something new, even though I walk the same path every day. It's just that my mind's too busy that I don't see it, even though it's right in front of me. And this, I think it's the same thing with meditation.
And I can't help but think that the idea of true nature is one step away from what actually is true nature. So it's the true, I think of it as true nature of my mind. And once I'm positioned there, then then there's no way that I'm in touch with the true nature of big mind. So I'll continue to be joyfully confused about this stuff. Gate.
Yeah.
Why do they title this section impartiality? Is that the editors, or is it the, I guess it's not Chang, but I wonder why they picked that word.
I think it's referring to no parts, not lack of judgment. I mean, that's the way I interpret it. So
I like that, the way you pointing me to that term, but it's an odd use of the word impartiality.
it's translation.
Well, I wonder if it is Chang or if this is the editor put this section headed.
Well, in most of these pairs of opposites, one of them is usually considered good and the other is considered bad, like no non-distraction and no distraction. Generally, distraction is considered bad and non-distraction is considered good. And well, not all of them, obviously not all of them, but meditation is considered good and lack of meditation is considered bad. So it's if you transcend the duality, obviously you're not going to be partial to one or the other.
I like that better, I think.
And at the same time, the value judgment that we want to make when we're saying, well, this is an undesirable piece, like the meditation, no meditation and no experience. I love my meditation, and experience is samsara, and so because I'm interpreting it that way, my value shifts from one to the other. When actually there's no value, no real value to be had one way or another, because experience is just experience. I don't think it's an antithesis of meditation.
Something I was thinking about that is that if I'm in Maryland, there's no flying to Maryland because I'm in Maryland, and there's no not flying to Maryland because I'm in Maryland.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
There's no going home if you're already home.
And there's no not going home.
There's no not going home.
Yeah.
Isn't that why we use all these words to try to explain or try to analyze these things? Because there is no other way. We're not at the level of not having to speak or open our mind or open our mouths, get a point across to, it's like if we can flip our eyes inward and see our true self, we see everybody else. But when we look at a mirror or look in the water, then we see a reflection of ourselves. Is that really ourselves? Is that really us? Or is this, a picture or just a mirage of us?
So there's no way and there's no absence of way.
I think there should be a childlike joy. A child 2 years old, 3 years old, before they start you know, creating dualities for themselves, being, that they can run outside and dance in the sunshine and just love it. It's
Or the
warm,
rain.
but then they can go outside and dance in the rain and enjoy that just as much. So I think there's lots of references in the scriptures and in the prayers and everything about that childlike quality that that becomes a guidepost for us.
Yeah, it's an analogy I've heard before, certainly. I think it was in Longchenpa, but I could be mistaken about that. They said a child in the shrine room seeing a shrine room for the first
Oh, yeah.
time. I think that's in Longchenpa. It might be somewhere else. A 2-year-old child in the shrine room.
I'm reading In Love with the World, Yonggi Mingyur Rinpoche, and he references that sort of experience as something that should occur on the ass end of every bardo. I mean, every gap. um, he he says that's his experience. He wakes up, and if he doesn't feel amazement and joy, then he doesn't feel like he woke up on the right side of the bed.
Okay.
But between every gap where life theoretically the experience of life ends and the opportunity for the experience of life to begin, there's an opportunity to be completely reoriented into that toddler space.
There's a freedom there.
Yeah.
Before we realize that we're a man or a woman, that we realize that we're black or white, or we realize any of the other distinctions that gives us ego identity. That childlike nature, that impartiality, that likes anybody and everything.
Yeah. I watched my cat this evening. He's got a pet. He's got a pet. It's a string bean. So we throw him a string bean, a green bean, every couple of weeks, and he hides it on himself, and then he finds it and he bites it and he throws it around like it's a baton. And that's just the joyous of things, a string bean, and his whole world is revolving around it, and he's got an adventure. I don't know what his little head's about, but he's definitely hiding it and hiding from it, and grabs it, throws it, and then chases it, and I envy that. So I get down on the floor and play with the string bean with him, and
That's like the cartoon of the man and the dog sitting on the park bench, looking at the woods. The when he's looking into the woods, he has all these thoughts of worldly concerns, wife, kids, bills, this and that. And the dog just looks at that and just sees a big space to go shit and piss in. Yeah, I've been reading the Samadhi Sutra, this Samadhi Raja Sutra, and there was one part I'm on 38, chapter 38, and it was talking about it says, a person has no origination or sensation, and likewise these phenomenon have always been empty. When that is known, there is no loss. And when I attained acceptance, when I have attained acceptance of birthlessness. We've talked about birthlessness, over and over and over, but that really radiated with me. Just the way it was put. it's amazing how words, if just juggled certain ways, can make sense for certain people and bring in a certain realization. But I guess that's why we use these words, because we have no other ways of communicating. And I have such a long way to go.
I'd like to hear some more reading.
Yes.
There's a special part coming up.
Okay. Would you like to read this section, Michael?
Oh, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, sure.
Where did we stop? We stopped
There is, well, you have the book,
the book.
top of page 126 is where it starts.
Yeah. There is no duality of cause and result, just like the center of empty space. Therefore, there is no generation and no ripening. There is no obscuration and no purification in the mind that is primordially empty. It is the immaterial inseparability of knowing and emptiness. Therefore, there is no wisdom and no ignorance. The meditators who know this, who thus know, in the luminous essence of the mind, the equality of view, meditation, conduct, commitment, and result, have no attachment to a viewer and a viewed. Therefore, they are the kings of a detachment-free view. You want me to finish the section, Murray?
Yeah, go ahead, Michael. Yeah.
They have no attachment to a meditator and object of meditation. Therefore, they are the kings of a detachment-free meditation. They have no attachment to a performer of conduct and a performed conduct. Therefore, they are the kings of attachment-free conduct. They have no attachment to someone who attains and something attained. Therefore, they are the kings of attachment-free result.
Trying to get that.
Reminds me of a vagabond who could feel like he's king of the world, lacking nothing. He's got it, the whole world. Yeah.
Yes.
It reminds me of your cat. He's just flinging the string bean around and playing with it. And he's just playing with all the mind games that were so serious to him before. We're all part of the, getting to this point, and now completely free of all that.
And because there is a viewer, he's the king of the house.
You can see all the points of view.
I'd love to be a king of an attachment-free result. I think maybe because I've managed some business, as most of you have, some kind of business, and I'm forced to be strategic and tactical and have a vision and goals. And if there's one thing that I'm always attached to is an outcome. And to not have a destination of any kind in mind is a real freedom, because that in that moment there's just the moment. There's no sense of a next anything.
That's funny you said that, Michael. Tonight we were speaking about, my aunt and uncle talking about opening up another business and talking about all these things and stuff. And I stopped and I said, you know, why are we spending money to create our own suffering? Oh, the looks I got.
I don't think they're ready to be cave yogis.
Oh boy, you know.
But they're spiritual, religious people, but
Oh yeah,
just don't see that. They just can't see that.
Well, they knew it was a zinger and they didn't like Thomas zinging them with it, you know. It stung a little bit, I think.
yeah, I was like, yeah. And why are we doing this? Why are we spending money to create suffering to ourselves?
Well, some people enjoy the suffering, I guess.
Oh, they do. They enjoy samsara. They really thoroughly enjoy samsara. You know, this is it to them, you know. I
Maybe
understand.
that's the king. Maybe that's the king. The king is the sovereign of all this. I control my suffering. You know, I'm the sovereign of my suffering. I'm the sovereign of
There you
my
go.
happiness.
There you go. Exactly.
You know, I can do what I want. I'm the king.
Yeah, like this morning when I was meditating, I had a chuckling moment. All these kids, wife, this, that, and then really, and this the sutra I'm reading, it constantly points out all phenomenon is inherently all empty. Like, why am I so caught up in all this? I started laughing to myself. Why? It's so ridiculous. If I lost all this, would it matter? Really, would it matter? Always for every chapter, it starts out practice without regard to body and life. Practice without regards to your body or life. And that way you will attain complete enlightenment. And, that's not an easy thing for us to do. And, it is so true. It is so true.
What do you think of the notion that, the bodhisattva who goes through all these stages and so on like that, but continues to be the bodhisattva, makes a choice to continue to be a bodhisattva in order to benefit other beings. But then at some point, does the bodhisattva decide, okay, I've done enough. That's all I don't need to do this anymore. And then crosses the 11th bhumi and becomes a Buddha. Pete
I
Bernie,
don't think it's,
you
I don't
probably
think
have read
it's
it.
quite that simple. I don't know. It's when they see that there really never was anything to do. It's not like they decide that they're not going to do it anymore.
No, maybe so, yeah.
It's when they can say and sit with it, the idea that there is no suffering and then there is no not suffering. Like Thomas was saying, that we create our own suffering because we wouldn't know what else to do. We wouldn't know what we need to conquer, or what direction we need to go in, or what's next.
I think
That's
the
time.
Buddha's,
That's samsara.
Pete?
yeah, I think the Buddhas are endlessly benefiting sentient beings in perfect ways. We just don't realize because we can't see it in action. Like we might think, if traffic's going too slow, we might think, well, if Buddha was going to end suffering, that all the cars would flow and not have any traffic jams or whatever, But the Buddhas are like, people are constantly making choices with their karma. And at the same time, Buddhas are effortlessly and endlessly not trying, but they're benefiting beings, It's just imperceptible to us.
Is it a sense of happiness?
Sure, total bliss. They call it Mahasukha. Just total bliss. No slight lack of bliss, no speck of lack of bliss anywhere.
Do you think about that? Does that cross your mind?
The bliss?
Making a choice for that.
I don't think about it too much, but I know, I do. What does cross my mind is to practice and be free of suffering and to free others of suffering.
Does anybody else have a comment about that?
I think back to your story about encountering um, the emptiness, darkness. I mean, I think anybody that's done psychedelics has probably tapped into that for a moment. And really, in my recollection of my peak experiences and certain flashbacks, that encountering that really and literally is losing your mind, and just the the self concept that's involved in acknowledging that as a good thing. Um, I think I think that I think we can be some people are frightened of that because it's so close to death. And I think once you can grasp the concept or have been close to an experience, then the heart realizes that that's death. And you never know when you've actually gotten there and you don't know it, and you've actually left everything else behind, including your body and your family. And that would frighten me, no matter how awake I was, I think.
Is it a valid experience?
Well, quote unquote, losing your mind is, that's a cliche, but it's not supposed to be a good thing. Um, and the way we're talking, it's the goal. So again, the words and the society and the cultural traditions and ideas about what's attainment, they're just gonna they just hang around like filters and obscurations, and it's just gonna take a hell of a lot of purification to for me to get any closer.
I'm 76 years old. I don't know how many years I got left, you know, and I find myself, I've always been in the service business one way or another. Whatever my vocation was, it had a service, point to it. And that was the driving force for me. And even now, I said, okay, when I retired, I was going to retire and devote my life to the Dharma and developing Dharma awareness within myself and to share that with other beings and everything. And I find that there's frustration in that. There's work in that. And now, this past year or so, I find myself thinking about, well, what's going to make me happy today? What do I want to do now? What do I want to do for the next 5 minutes? And to maintain that bliss, to maintain that happiness all the time. I find myself thinking about that. And then when I take the service attitude, I meet my frustration. But and I'm not being selfish about it. I don't think, we can talk about that, but I just find that at this stage in my life as a human being, to be happy and radiate that happiness, because when I'm happy, I see everybody else as being happy. And when I'm frustrated, everybody else seems to be frustrated too. And people would say to me, well, why you got such a long face today? You know, but then other times they would say, Christ, Lance, you're always smiling. You know, and it just tracks right along, you know, that bliss. Is it the bliss, or is it the servitude? Is there bliss in servitude? Well, we try and make it that, but yet there's still, you know, there's still remnants. What do you
There's
think?
people that go volunteer with that would go volunteer with Mother Teresa, and they said, this isn't very blissful, loving, you know, feeling. It's like dirty, difficult, and thankless, you know, something, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I suppose it all comes together when compassion is born, because when compassion is born, what makes you happy is making other people happy. So until that time, it's a little, you have compassion, but it's a little bit artificial. You're kind of doing it because you know you should be doing it, but at a certain point, it becomes natural. They use that in analogy. It's like the sun shining. The sun doesn't. A Buddha is like the sun shining. The sun doesn't want to benefit other beings. Just by being what it naturally is, it does benefit beings. So at a certain point, compassion just becomes the natural expression of who you are.
8:30.
Well, that's an interesting point, because in that blissful state, do you deny compassion?
You take off?
In other words, you may be
See,
blissful, but then something presents itself that requires compassion, and right away you just engage in compassion.
Well, once compassion becomes your natural state of being, the compassion makes you feel blissful. It's like being in love. You know, you do stuff for the person that you love because you want to. It's not like it's a great sacrifice. And the compassion just extends that to all sentient beings.
But at the same time, it's a job. I mean, once you exercise true compassion, there's action that's required in order to resolve other suffering. I mean, that's what separates it from empathy.
Sure. It requires effort,
dirty.
if that's what you mean. Sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know, but I'm not there yet. But I think at that point, it's not a hard job to do.
Can the Buddha deny his humanness, his human nature?
Well,
that's probably a question for the.
It's a good question. He doesn't have any qualities at all because he's transcended them all, including humanness.
What a living Buddha, but a Shakyamuni Buddha.
Well, obviously he's a human being as
far
as his body is concerned.
Garchen Rinpoche.
Obviously they've got bodies. Yeah, well there's another story about that, but we won't go there now. So obviously they're human beings and they're limited by their physical body, but I think at the level of the Buddha, even those kind of limits are transcended. So
the Buddha would get a headache sometimes, but he'd say it was total bliss.
I have
get a splinter.
That.
Well, that's what they say, you know.
Well, what about when he was dying? What about when he was dying? He knew he ate the rotten food or whatever it was, and he knew he was dying.
I don't know. I'll tell you when I'm a Buddha. I have no idea.
Well,
I'm asking the question hypothetically. You know,
no
is it a question for us now, or only when we realize that we're a Buddha?
Well, I think the more more relevant question is, what should we do when we are suffering right now, and how should we bring that onto the path? So, and there are various ways, of course. Tonglen is the way that we've all learned. So we take on the suffering of other beings when we were ourselves experience suffering. So we use our suffering as a way of feeling compassion for all other beings. So that's the normal way how it's taught.
So martyrdom is the answer there, huh?
It's not really martyrdom. It's Tonglen is martyrdom. A lot of people misunderstand that. It's really being strong and courageous, really.
Well, of course.
It's
What martyr wasn't?
but well, I guess you're from that point of view, you're right. But generally, people think of martyrdom as somebody who's suffering for the sake of others. But I always thought of it was like somebody who knows they're strong and they take the load of another person because they know that they can handle it. So from that point of view, it's not a suffering. It's really showing one's qualities at that point.
Curtis,
I think the joyfulness that we were talking about before, I think it becomes, like Bernie mentioned, for the Bodhisattva, enjoys helping others. And it's not like a difficult punishment to do that. They just enjoy doing that, you know?
I was going to ask Curtis, he's been quiet tonight. So I'm wondering what words of wisdom are churning around.
Well, I will just say, I confirmed now with courtesy of Wikipedia, the word martyr means witness. It's when you're killed for your beliefs. In other words, it's about being faithful to the truth, even at the cost of death. And so anyway, I think that's interesting. It's, I don't know.
So you're pointing out that it's a wrong use of the word, the way I was trying to use it.
Well, I mean, we all have the common use. Oh, what a martyr, he's whining about, this or that. But the real meaning of the word is bearing witness to the truth at the cost of death. It goes back to, I imagine, Greek and Christendom, when that's, the saints were dying, or, they were, well, actually, those of you who are Catholic know, to be a saint, to be declared a saint, you have to have jumped through certain hoops, but a martyr is easier to do in a way. You have the proof that you died for the faith, and that's enough. Whereas with a saint, you kind of have to prove things. You had some miracles and things like that. I don't know the details, but it is true. That it's a different category of sanctification. But anyway, this is an aside. I guess to come back to, I'm hearing all this, and it's, I'm enjoying the discussion, but it's so much abstraction. And just, when they start talking non-dually like this, or in the Heart Sutra, you try to have a rational discussion about it, your mind can go to mush real quick. It acts like a koan. The mind just doesn't get traction. And I guess I'm just quiet because I'm having trouble getting traction. My usual analyzing is just kind of short-circuited with all this, blowing to smithereens, all the categories, because he's just saying there's no duality between this and its opposite. Well, you completely deconstruct language. You're completely deconstructing language, or making it problematic when you do that. And it's using language to deconstruct dualistic experience. But it does a number on language. So I'm quiet because I don't know what to say. This whole chapter is the same. It's got one point, impartiality, and it just goes through all these non-dualities. The whole thing is these pairs of opposites and saying there ain't no opposite. I'm gonna be quiet now.
Is it the sense that an opposite it implies a polarity, no matter what? There's a valence to it whatsoever, and then anytime there's a valence, you've got at least two objects that are in energetic relationship with each other.
You're keeping the mush stirred very nicely.
No,
Thank you.
it's quicksand. It's quicksand, and the more we use the language, the more we sink. But the more we sink in the quicksand, the more we realize we are quicksand.
Well, are we blowing our minds?
Yeah, we're not something. Yeah, got to.
I think the best thing with these descriptions is to consider that language is useful, but only to a certain point, and then it's not useful. But it's useful up to a point, and we can make use of it. This stuff's inspiring, but it's not going to make us experience it just by reading it. But it can inspire us to practice, and then we'll experience it, look at it, and say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense."
Bingo. Keyword practice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Without practice, these are all just pieces of words on a page. Makes, you have to practice. You have to have devotion. You have to have faith when you're doing this. Like Lance said, the Buddha knew what he was eating, before he passed. And, in the Shakyamuni Buddha sadhana, says, turn the wheel of the profound and vast Dharma teachings, ceaselessly in every direction I pray. Your wisdom body is like space and remains changeless throughout past, present, and future. Yet in the perception of those to be guided, you go through the display of birth and death. Even so, let your form body continue always to appear.
What was that from?
Shakyamuni
Shakyamuni
Buddha
practice.
sadhana.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Shakyamuni Buddha practice. The very first, when you're reading, to guide us. That's why he went through birth and death.
What are those three things I need, Tom? Practice, devotion. What's the other one?
Faith.
Thank you.
But practice, 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 practice.
Can we go to the next section?
Sure.
Because we're almost done the whole Lama Shang chapter of the book. A few more pages, but I'll read from it. Section 12, the white panacea. In the instant that you realize your own mind, all good qualities without exception are simultaneously completed without having to accomplish them. The three kayas are primordially naturally present in the nature of the mind, which is like space. The jewel of the Buddha is completely within it. The nature of the mind is free of elaboration, free of desire. The jewel of the Dharma is complete within it. Its nature is birthless and irreversible, with the variety of thoughts arising as its companions. The jewel of the Sangha is complete within it. I think right there's some important things. Talking about the naturalness of realization, because we're always like trying to conform to the practice as we practice, but when you get realization, it's just naturally there. You don't have to try, So I think that's important.
So we have the three jewels here in this the first four stanzas, I guess you'll call them. You have the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha.
It's also important what he says about the nature of the variety of thoughts. You still have thoughts, but you're not trapped by them.
Yeah, well, you don't need to push them away anymore.
Yeah.
You don't need to to try to calm them down because you see their nature. So it's saying everything is, the 3 jewels are already present in your mind is what it says essentially.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
here. So
I mean, yeah.
yeah.
I'm thinking here what he's talking about is realizing Mahamudra, and that the white panacea is the realization of Mahamudra.
Well, everybody knows what a panacea is, don't they? A panacea is a medicine that cures any disease regardless of what it is. And I'm not sure what the white signifies, except that it's usually the connotation is white is good, stainless, pure. But panacea just means a medicine that will cure everything. I mean, I assume people knew what that is, but just in case somebody didn't, that's what it means.
It says, even the 3 jewels are complete in your own mind's knowing. Therefore, there is no need to seek refuge elsewhere. The definitive refuge is complete in it.
So when we say
Okay.
our own minds knowing, are we talking about the a gnosis, or vicarious knowing, do you think?
Well, it's not, it's direct. It's totally direct.
So it's the experience of knowing. It's not vicarious.
Right.
It's the gnosis,
It's direct experience.
direct experience.
So it's saying that all the 3 jewels are already contained in your own mind once you realize what your mind is. So
And that goes to the metaphor that we use all the time, that we have Buddha nature, we have this all within us, but
Sure.
it's just blocked up, it's obscured with our emotions and our wisdom obscurations and so on. But when we open it up, even before it's completely open, shards of light are shooting through, and we can have
Right.
these insights, we can have these glimpses, because it is not a switch that turns on and off. It's not a binary thing. There's stages to it and so on.
yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
With refuge, there's the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the Lama, the Yidam, the Dakini. I see the winds, the channels, the drops.
Well, I don't know if
What's
that
the third-
becomes
what's the
part
third
of
one?
the. I don't think
What's
that
the-
becomes part of the 3 jewels.
No, but what's the third one? Those levels of refuge. There's
Winds,
winds, channels, and
channels.
drops.
Oh, I forget.
And then there's one beyond it, which is the ultimate, which is like your own mind.
Sure.
I'd thought y'all would help me complete this thought. Y'all are the experts. Please
Not
help.
that familiar with it. Not that familiar.
Well, if you're talking about the 4 joys.
No, that's different.
And don't those levels of refuge,
Yeah, there's the inner, the outer, the inner, and the secret.
secret.
Is what you're talking about.
the secret is
Secret,
winds,
that-
channels, and drops.
It might be, but I'm not so clear. So
That would be
Okay.
the inner, I believe.
I think, yes, I think they are the inner.
So what's the Lama, Yidam, and Dakini then?
That's outer.
there's they call the 3 jewels. The Lama, the Yidam, the Dakini are the 3 roots, is how they
Okay.
usually say it. And
But anyway, okay, I may be confusing.
three
I
jewels.
think
and the 3
Mahamudra, I think
roots.
the secret is Mahamudra or Dzogchen.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Hmm.
Can't remember.
Say that again. What was that point, Pete?
That I believe that the most ultimate refuge is the realization of Mahamudra, or for Enigma, Dzogchen.
I think so, yes. I mean, everything that I've experienced, that's the articulation of that of that threshold.
Well, that's what he's saying right here in this section, that everything is complete within Mahamudra, the mind which realizes Mahamudra.
Right.
Okay, I just got refuges in Vajrayana on Wikipedia. The outer is the triple gem, the inner is the three roots, and the secret is the three bodies or trikaya of the Buddha.
Okay, the three kayas. Okay.
I don't know where I get the wind channels and drops business.
Well, you know, the three kayas are already present in your physical, in your experience as the winds, channels, and drops.
Guess what? I was onto something. Look at the second stanza. The three kayas are primordial, naturally present. And the nature of mind, which is like space, the jewel of the Buddha is completely within it. So I think it's and then there goes the nature of mind is free of elaboration. They're all three the nature of so in the nature of the mind are the three kayas. That's the secret level of refuge.
Right.
So this is the ultimate refuge, the inner refuge. Excuse me, the secret refuge. This is talking about the secret refuge.
Okay.
We were
I think-
talking, there's something in the next, I'd like to read the next line coming up. Well, in the nature of the mind, which is without elaboration, there's no basis for desire and selfishness. Therefore, the aspiration bodhicitta is complete. But this is the part I'm talking about. Everything is understood to be an illusion, so that objectless compassion arises, and benefiting others is naturally present. Therefore, the bodhicitta of engagement is complete in that. So
That's
when the
absolute
Buddhas,
bodhicitta. That'd be absolute
Yeah.
bodhicitta.
and the Buddhas, they say the Buddhas only see Buddhas. When they see sentient beings, they see their true nature as Buddhas, and that the suffering and so forth is an illusion. And so they benefit them by freeing them from that illusion.
Was it 2 weeks ago? I forget where I heard this recently, but and they all think and they think to themselves, I'm the last one to realize this. I'm the last Buddha to catch on.
Okay. Well, the next line is in the nature of the mind, which is like space, there is freedom from all fixation and attachment. Therefore, the perfection of generosity is complete in that. So there's no no lacking of any qualities here is what all these lines are saying. Like your natural state, all the qualities are present. The qualities of a Buddha.
Well, he's going on to the paramitas: generosity,
He's going to all the
conduct, patience,
paramitas,
diligence, meditation, wisdom.
Yeah.
1 through
All
6.
the 6 paramitas.
Yeah.
Free of the stains of concepts, right? Pure,
Yeah.
and no fear of emptiness, and union of knowing and emptiness is never interrupted. That's funny. One point in this is primarily purely present, right? Spontaneous liberation from the concepts of wrong views. Spontaneous liberation. Okay. Spontaneous liberation. Does anybody want to say what the word spontaneous liberation means to them? Why spontaneous? I mean, it seems like we're busting our ass all the time, so it's anything but spontaneous.
Got it.
So, what does spontaneous liberation mean to you?
We don't have to work at it. It's the nature of
It was because
you're just liberated from the concepts of wrong views. You're not having to get liberation, work towards it. You're just liberated.
okay.
I think from the view of the ordinary being is spontaneous, but I think you've created tremendous amount of past merit,
Yes.
wisdom.
Right.
And when it happens, yes, it seems spontaneous, but I don't, what the hell do I know? You
No,
know,
I think that's pretty
how do
wise,
I know?
Thomas.
I'm
That's
just a regular ordinary being trying to, trying to figure all this out. But, you know, uh, when I see somebody, get that aha moment, isn't that liberation right there? From that moment ago when he or she didn't know?
so that's the problem with the connotation of spontaneous is that it's riddled with the concept of time. So I can't think of anything being spontaneous unless it's surprising. And if something's surprising, that means there was a time where I did not realize or anticipate or expect or include any thought of any of that possibility. So I think that time is that's the samsaric path. We look back, we look forward. We're always, I mean, our minds are remembering more than being with and fearing and anticipating, and we just don't spend any time in the moment to be able to see the delights that are happening right here, right now. So for us, spontaneous means, ooh, it just happened out of nowhere. Well, that's because we're thinking that there's a where that things are supposed to be coming from, and that we're supposed to actually have some clue.
Yeah, well, what's the analogy? It's like in the Lotus Sutra, the god, the prince who has forgotten that he's a prince, and the king gradually gives him different. When the king finds him, the king gradually gives him different jobs, and eventually he makes him prince again. But he was always prince to begin with, That's the analogy that they use in the Lotus Sutra.
You just didn't know it.
He just didn't realize it. And if you had told him it at the first, he wouldn't have believed you. So he needed to do all the work to realize that he was actually the prince, but he actually was the prince from the beginning.
But we've all forgotten that we're already enlightened. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I don't mind forgetting. I just mind not imagining.
Well, this is, it hasn't come out and said it anywhere, but this is a description of Buddhahood.
Yeah. It's the view from the ultimate point of view. They talk about the relative and ultimate truth. All this stuff is the view from the ultimate point of view.
There are 10 bhumis and then there's Buddhahood. Sometimes I've heard 11th bhumi. Anyway, it's beyond the bhumis though. It's Buddhahood.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen it expressed that that 11th bhumi is the cutting through and the crossing over. The Trechko and the Togul. So it's the final. It's that 11th level, and so that state of flux, if you will, and then going into the Buddha.
But like the space of non-meditation.
I suppose you can express it in a million different ways.
I've heard it expressed what, like a glass of water next to the ocean. And once that glass gets broken, you're part of the ocean again. And that's the only thing that's separating is that thin little piece of glass.
Which is nothing but sand, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's non-conceptual, you know. So we're playing word games again, you know. So
Pats my ego. That's what it does. Yeah.
what's that?
It pats my ego, makes me think, oh, I know something. But
Well, we're inspiring each other. You know, it's a good cause. What we're doing, it's a good thing. You know, I mean, it begs the question in my mind. You know, what is this? What is there inspiration in what we've been doing with the past year or however long it's been now with this? You know, what's it inspire? What's the inspiration? Where does the inspiration lead? Is it something that becomes just automatic and we'll just wait for it to kick in, or is it something that we work for? You know, or is it an affirmation of what you already know and are?
I think it works at two different levels. At one level, it inspires us to practice more. And at the second level, inspires us to think about what we've experienced. So it works at two levels, both the practical level and the intellectual level. I think they're both important.
But even so, with all this practice, sometimes, man, it just feels like you're hitting a wall,
Of course. Yes.
It's like
The wall, the 10-foot tall wall, the 10-foot tall
it's
wall.
like, it's like I've been doing and doing it. Am I lacking something? Am I just am I not doing it well enough? Am I just not, and then certain days it's just like everything just flows, it just flows really well, and you're just in a great state of mind, And yeah, I realize it's my mind. I put myself into that state, but
you just have to keep plugging away. There's no alternative.
yeah.
But sometimes it does feel like a 10-foot wall. So, but
I think faith helps at those times.
Yeah, sure.
Having that faith and inspiration and just keep plugging away at it,
Yeah.
And sometimes that outer refuge, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the Lama, the Dakini, and the Yidam, Dharma, Dakini, and the Yidam. Those things, those three really, I still need it sometimes. I really do. I'm still a beginner, so it really helps.
Did we finish this section on page 128? Did we come down to it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stanzas? Did we finish all 5 of those stanzas?
We got through the 6 paramitas. I think we're on page.
We didn't read the parameters though.
We didn't read
noted
them, but I mean, we could read them. But
I can read them. You want to read them, Curtis?
Okay. Hold on, let me find it.
Middle
Okay.
of page 127.
Yeah. In the nature of the mind, which is like space, there is freedom from all fixation and attachment. Therefore, the perfection of generosity is complete in that. It is perfectly pure of the stains of concepts. Therefore, the perfection of conduct is complete in that. There is no fear of emptiness, and the seeds of anger are vanquished. Therefore, the perfection of patience is complete in that. The union of knowing and emptiness is never interrupted. Therefore, the perfection of diligence is complete in that. One-pointedness is primordially naturally present. Therefore, the perfection of meditation is complete in that. There is spontaneous liberation from the concepts of wrong views. Therefore, the perfection of wisdom is complete in that. And then it's beautiful. The next line I love is beautiful. everything that appears arises as companions. Therefore, the great method, the great accumulation of merit is complete in that.
I'd like to hear what you all think about um, how we might understand what's profound about companions. Is this the idea that whatever form or phenomena we become aware of is actually alive and living?
Yeah.
Yeah.
as much-
I think that in the usual state, everything appears doesn't seem like a companion to us. It seems like it could be an enemy or neutral or something. But when you have that great love and so forth in the Mahayana, everyone that you see, you just love them, and then pretty soon everything that appears in terms of forms and sounds and so forth, you're just glad that it's like the pure luminosity of the Buddha nature, at these high levels.
Well, I don't know. This is a bit of a stretch, but what it means to me is that when you start to become enlightened, everything that you experience enhances your enlightenment. When you get to a certain stage, all experience is an enhancement of what you already know. Everything is an expression of emptiness, and you see it as an expression of emptiness. In that way, it's a companion on the path, a Dharma companion. So everything in the world brings you further along the path.
I think the word companion is important to look at. If I'm out in a crowd, if I'm out in the world, people are not companions, but if I go out and I see Tom somewhere, I'm encountering a companion. What are the qualities of that? Is there something familiar? There's something safe. There's something giving me presence, in the duality of two, if you will. And I think, when everything that appears arises as companions, that means everything you're experiencing has that sort of familiarity with what? With your nature that you're experiencing that Buddha place. It's all the other Buddha nature you're bumping into everywhere. And it would feel, companion is a word that speaks of familiarity and I think friendliness.
So when he speaks about therefore the great accumulation of merit is complete in that, is he saying that the accumulation of merit exponentially like that is possible because you're now in 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 highly productive relationship with like beings, or that that everything you're relating to is now lifting you and everything else up. Like Bernie said, it's sort of apparent that when you reach a certain level, everywhere you look, people are you're independently arising. So everywhere you turn, you're giving everybody a boost and a hand up and a push up and sharing. Is that what it
Yeah,
what the
what
merit looks like?
Well, as I recall from the scriptures, it always says that the greatest merit is to recognize the emptiness of all things, so that just by recognizing the emptiness of all phenomena, you're generating a tremendous amount of merit. So you're accumulating merit just by recognizing the nature of all phenomena.
Okay.
I don't want to denigrate the usual sense of helping other beings, because that's also important, but you help other beings within the framework of seeing them as empty as well.
I think that we have to look at it in terms, again, of being a human being. And a human being that has had a profound realization of absolute nature, Mahamudra, while at the same time remaining a human being. So therefore, we have our big mind and we have our little mind. And the companion of the big mind is the little mind. And that although we have attained some realization of the absolute, our constant companion is that little mind that's always chattering away, and to place the values of whether it's good or bad, that's not necessarily useful, because we see it all as the same thing at the absolute level. But still it's chattering away. So it gives us our work continues as a human being to live the enlightened life. That's what, Ken Wilber said. I always say this, that we're already enlightened. We just don't realize it, or what's difficult is living the enlightened life because of that companion little mind that's always chattering away, and being able to know how to deal with that companion.
So where does the accumulation of merit come in?
By working on that, by having to deal with that it's an ongoing process. As long as we're breathing, we're in that dualistic nature, and that's our work, is to maintain and that the merit becomes the result of that. And I guess it implies, is there a demerit by not doing that, or by falsely and either ignoring it or having the wrong view about it? I don't know. I haven't thought about that, but in the nature of dualism, if there's a merit, is there a demerit? Yes.
I'm going to take a stab at this. So the great method is, the way I see the great method is the accumulation of merit. It's one of the two accumulations, merit and wisdom. Well, the great method it's the great accumulation of merit. Okay, it's complete in that. It doesn't say it's accomplished in that, it says it's complete. So here's my way I see it. When everything that appears arises as companions, that is an expression of where the great accumulation of merit takes you ultimately, which is that experience, that view. So in other words, when everything that appears arises as companions, that's one and the same as you've got that you've completed the accumulation of merit, because that's the goal, if you will. That's a sign that you've completely accumulated merit, which is that everything arises seen as companions.
I've been trying to fit this into the fivefold path of Mahamudra. So I'm not sure if it, it may be a fool's errand, but nevertheless, that the first would be the accumulation of wisdom and merit, and then the next would be the accumulation of wisdom, the deity yoga, and then the next would be the Vay's empowerment, would be the four kayas, Guru Yoga, and then the fourth one would be the Mahamudra itself, the meditation itself, and then the supreme empowerment. Well, that's where it gets a little fuzzy for me. Is that the realization? Is that the dedication?
Well, I like the parallel with the way in which he's just gone through the 6 paramitas, but the 6 paramitas are not linear, one after the other. So it could be that the parallel structure may not be a linear structure, just like it wasn't with the paramitas.
Well, there's another point then. If you read the chapter on the paramitas and the jewel ornamental liberation, he goes on and says that there's 4 additional paramitas. And the seventh one is skillful means.
Skillful means.
The eighth one is vows, wishes, and aspirations. The perfection of vows, wishes, and aspirations. And then the ninth would be the perfection of the 10 powers of a Buddha. And then the 10th would be the perfection of the primordial wisdom, the prajna. So I have to study this a little bit more, contemplate this a little bit more, see if that fits in with those.
So when you said the prajna, the primordial wisdom,
Primordial wisdom.
when the last part on page 124 reads, what is it? While you are becoming familiarization with the realization, there remains the subless obscuration of knowledge, but the instant there is non-meditation, the great accumulation of wisdom is complete. You are permanently purified of the seeds of the triple aspects of conceptualization,
Where are you?
the obscuration of knowledge.
Where are you reading from, Tom?
Bottom of page 124.
124?
Yes, the triple aspects. That's what Bernie was saying. There is no giver, there is no receiver, there is nothing given. That is the prajna paramita, isn't it? The
Now, I've got a note that was a reference in the jewel ornament liberation.
Right,
Mhm.
right. It's that everything's complete within the 3 spheres, which is no object, no receiver, and no in terms of generosity, no
Mhm.
gift or no action, I
Mhm.
guess.
124, where, I'm sorry, I'm still lost.
The
Where-
very last stanza, 124.
Well, as other things, we may need to read on to be able to get some clarity on this part. So you want to stay with us tonight, or you want to pick this up again next time?
It's 8:30. Let's break here. It's 8:30.
Say, let's go to the end of this section.
You really? Okay. How far much? How
No, I
much?
think I'm ready to move on, and come back to it next time. I think it's worthwhile to independently maybe read this, study this, meditate on this, contemplate it, and then come back and maybe we can have a little bit better point of view on it.
I agree with Lance, not Curtis.
All right, we'll leave it here for tonight then.
Yep.
So I'm the next person, right? I'm usually after Pete, right?
That's right. Yes.
My turn next time. Okay.
Yeah. So next
So
time,
we'll finish up this section and we'll at least start on the next section. How big is the next section? It's pretty long.
That's pretty long.
So yeah, we'll finish this and maybe we'll get in part of the next section,
Prayer.
which is
all right. So
Yeah,
we're
which
coming
is-
back in 2 weeks on the 19th.
19. Is that today? Today is the,
Today's the
Today's
5th.
Okay.
okay, so the 19th, sure. Better be the 19th, okay.
Okay.
Okay, brothers. Hey, thank you so much I'm a completely different person from an hour and a half ago.
By the virtues collected in the three times,
Three times.
by myself and all
Myself
beings,
and all beings.
and samsara and nirvana,
Nirvana. Nirvana.
and by the innate word of virtue,
Virtue.
may I and all
All
sentient beings
Sentient beings.
quickly attain
We attain
unsurpassed,
unsurpassed,
perfect, complete, and precious
precious
enlightenment.
enlightenment.
precious
May the
enlightenment.
teachings of the great
Teachings of the
Sri
great
Prabhupada,
Prabhupada,
Ratna
Ratna
Shri,
Shri,
who is
who is
omniscient,
omniscient,
Lord of the Dharma,
the Dharma,
Master of
Master of
interdependence,
interdependence,
continue and
continue and
increase
increase
through
through
study,
study,
practice,
practice,
contemplation,
contemplation,
meditation,
and meditation,
until the
until
end
the
of
end of
samsara.
samsara.
Om,
Om,
Ah,
Ah,
Om,
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 Ah,
Ah,
Om,
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 Ah,
Ah,
Om.
Om.
May my
my
body,
May that body,
speech, and
speech,
mind
and
and mind
become
become
inseparable with the
inseparable
body,
with
speech,
speech
and
and
mind
mind
of all the
of all
enlightened
the
ones
enlightened ones
for the
for
benefit
the benefit
of
of
all
all
sentient
sentient
beings.
beings.
Okay, sunshine.
See you all in 2 weeks.
See ya.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, friends.
See you guys this weekend.
See you with Kenshin.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have a good
Michael, if
time.
you get a chance, you ought to see if you can tune in on Zoom or something, because Kenshin is he's a teacher's teacher.
Yeah, I have it bookmarked in a couple of places, so we'll
He's
see what I get to do. Thank you.
he's quite awesome.
I've been having fun being here with him.
Oh yeah. We're good. All right. See you all next time. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Lance, when are you coming, by the way?
Tomorrow.
But I mean, do you have any idea what time?
Around 12, 1 o'clock, something like that.
Okay.
So we'll see. How are meals been with Kenshin? Has he been satisfied?
Oh yeah, we've been doing real well in the meal department. UC has come in. Let's see, he came on Tuesday, so we had. She came in and we're on Wednesday. Yeah, he came on Tuesday. Okay, yeah. So UC has been involved with, it seems like, dinner, breakfast, and now dinner. So she's been involved 3 times.
Is there anything I can bring? I got a few things I'm already bringing, but just is there something else that you need?
Bring a truck to haul food home.
A lot of food. Is that what you're saying?
I think we're accumulating leftovers quickly.
Okay.
Where are you putting it? In that refrigerator upstairs?
We got a new fridge today.
Oh, okay, good. Cool.
It's a little smaller. It's not as deep.
Well, that's
Anyway.
probably good.
Yeah.
Things will get lost in there.
I like the old one size. It could hold a lot more than this one. I think, I don't know, but I think it looks the same width, but it's actually, you quickly get a sense that it's smaller.
Okay.
But anyway, so honestly, Lance, I don't think we need anything. Things just kind of keep coming, and it's going to pick up when the teachings start.
All right. Very good.
Mhm.
All right. Well, good. Well, I look forward to coming and seeing you guys and being with Kenshin. It'll be good.
I would say, Lance, if you do come midday, I think we haven't had a set time for lunch, but you will probably, come close to lunchtime
Right.
or before. So something to keep in mind.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Thanks, Curtis. Pete. Everybody.
All right.
Cheery.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Lance.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.